I think that pragmatically, there's no good reason for social media companies to be owned by a very corporate, centralized entity. When you have something like a physical product, it makes sense that someone should be pulling certain levers to ensure that the product meets standards and such, but social media is not a product per se. In fact, there's no universal social media experience because everyone is a part of their own unique networks. Decentralization is inherent to their structure. Without the constant stream of people making their own individual opinions and thoughts heard, there's no such thing as social media. And that, in a way perhaps ironic, is why I feel the hype and controversy centered around Elon Musk's recent acquisition of Twitter is a bit of a strange event. On one hand, he does seem to represent some significant degree of the people who don't like how Twitter is doing business. But on the other hand, this isn't a democratic decision. It's important to stress. Think of it this way. Mark Zuckerberg could say he's going to buy Twitter and do the exact opposite of everything Elon wants to do. So perhaps Elon's utility of acquiring Twitter does grant regard to democracy, but philosophically it tells the opposite story. So this is the irony, which is that you're using your democratic voicing and support to bring closer the reality of a single person dictating the future of the app, which enables global conversation. All criticisms one could garner of Musk aside, I think this is actually emblematic of a problem much larger, which could be summed up in the simple phrase techno-feudalism. That is, we are choosing consciously to allow the foundation democracy sits upon, which is communication among the peasantry, to be made commercial by a single technocratic elitist. I honestly wonder what Occupy Wall Street would have thought about this event were it occurring in a shared timeline. So clearly, the problem I'm outlining is something that existed prior to Musk's recent endeavors. So what is the solution to something like this? Is it to desperately plead at the feet of Musk to enable our democracy to continue evolving along existing communication networks? Not at all. And I think if we do, we are actually setting ourselves up for greater problems in the future by furthering the cycles of dependency. Rather, I think that Twitter, and in fact all social networks where the service being provided is something that we are creating, is ripe to be brought under public ownership. I know, people will bring up concerns about the nature of democracy in the vein of Socrates' critique, but think about this. If we can't collectively work towards our own ability to functionally manage something as a whole, and I mean this as a logistical project, nothing as complex as coming to true ideological compromises or resolutions. I think that our ability to develop in a way which is cohesive and not eternally polarized should come under question. Perhaps even that our optimistic beliefs of civil society may be dangerous, because what we're talking about is not a narrative, but a meta-narrative, which influences the way, not that we talk, but the way which we think about and structure how we talk. It's important to be able to create structures by which the people can actually coordinate around ideas, such as improved networking. These are, after all, the very things which our social narratives are based on. And really, I don't think we have so much of a disagreement right now about how Twitter should be operated, as much as we have both a lack of clarity about how it does and a significant lack of communication about how we may feel would be the best way for it to operate. In terms of determining its future, I think it would be actually not terribly hard to agree on mutual rules of engagement. Through passive processes we already partake in, we can contribute to the greater forces of democracy by collaborating in this way. And this is the basic facet of Elon drop. And I know many of you Zoomers out there are too flippant to really pay mind to an idea of pertinence for more than 2 or 3 minutes at a time, just being honest, but this is a larger project that is trying to actually do more to actually tangibly change the state of society towards something which is pretty much along the same lines of what I'm explaining here. We would only need a small percentage of Twitter users to sign up to make the project a reality, and it's going to be ongoing for a whole year. Though the cold reality may be that the project will fall short of Musk's nigh insurmountable piles of wealth, I think that even just the attempt at succeeding here is a necessary movement of hearts and minds. But anyway, when Facebook was created, it was the project of a single person, an idea upon which many people eventually had to collaborate upon to create. And it may seem entirely ironic that I may use this as an example, as it may imply on the surface that we need a very specific trailblazer to bring about the best innovation all the time, but consider that Mark was just one person with nothing remarkable going for him at the time of Facebook's initial creation. And though we can recognize now that he had the right idea, and many people see how he is acting today and would largely disagree with his vision and direction with the platform of Facebook. Public ownership could help alleviate these problems, which to many people seem obvious in the ways that we could fix them. Collectively, it's not uncommon for people to spot inherent problems with the structuring of large-scale projects. And when pointed out by one person, the group then has a great brainstorming capacity to innovate effective solutions that we can implement in the real world. People are actually fairly passionate about coming to the right ideas and conclusions when given a significant chance and platform to do so and be meaningfully listened to. This is all to say that I think there is a basis for greater sociological developments in the form of large-scale problem-solving apparatuses, something I discussed at length in a previous video. I don't necessarily want to make a holistic case here in favor of public versus private ownership, but social media, to me, it just makes intuitive sense that if we are the product, maybe we should also be the manufacturer. But to digress slightly, I may suggest that a great issue we face today is the essential lack of direct power that people hold with regards to the way we conduct societal affairs. And there is no lack of problem-solving capabilities of the internet itself, and by all means, you can disagree with me, but think about what you're presupposing in disagreeing, that you yourself are not worth listening to by anyone. Because it's not that democracy as a whole is a failure, and that we need corporate overlords to tell us everything we need to do. And that's a common argument in favor of authoritarian government structures, because if it's just one person making all the decisions, they can be done with more ease and haste. But rather, I think we have truly yet to tap into democracy's capabilities via the internet and the communication that enables, with potential voting structures and organization that is literally instantaneous. To someone who is against this idea, consider that if you can offer a valid and useful voice, you yourself could be a major influencing force that determines the course of discussion and courses of tangible action we take as a society. Because if the database for our discussions on the internet was designed correctly, we would potentially be able to streamline discussions to follow a logical path and favor the ideas which are not just necessarily supported by the majority, as some people do critique about democracy, but ideas that are of sound logical merit. To tie this back into the general discussion you already have on the internet, think about what it would feel like to have a discussion that didn't just fade and get memory hold into the great expanse of the internet's landscape. I don't want to get into exact details of how this worked, but just keep in mind the general mode of operations I outlined in the previous video. Structurally, it can be done where we organize a controlled discussion in an unbiased manner. Politically, I think it's possible to give people more sway in how we make decisions without causing things to collapse. Socially, I think it is possible to come to better conclusions if we don't just hope our debates are sound and reasoned out, but mandated. As it currently stands, many people on the internet are kind of just shouting into the void, being driven to madness by these arguments. And the discussions they're engaging in are actually, I'd say, damaging to their capability to make sense of the world. What do I mean? I mean, when we're all totally free of accountability and there's no coherent, continual discussions to the point where, as it stands, the reality is our arguments are less like a global communication network that unites ideas to synthesize the greatest possible outcome. It's a lot more like shouting into an endless darkness that is poisoned by the apathy of anonymous people on the internet. How many times have you had a discussion with someone online and you get very heated, you're hoping to maybe teach the other person something, only to then completely forget about all that temporary passion you had in the argument and later feel like, that just kind of fell on deaf ears? I don't think this is actually a social problem. I think it's actually a structural one. Imagine, for example, if in the past there existed no mode of communication resembling that of a town hall, and we only had political discussions within a one-on-one model. That would have given us kind of a hard time, because talking in groups where people are individually accountable and remembered enables discussion that is more productive. And I think that's kind of what we're doing right now, is we're not so much having this open-ended discussion where we're mutually trying to create the best possible outcome. I think it's more like we're having these one-on-one duels where the other person is just trying to be like, yeah, I won that argument. I have my own surface level solution to this problem I'm calling Democracy Patch, that I will link once it's more of a work in progress than it is now. But ideally, I don't want to just create solutions that are independent of what we're already doing with social media. And this is actually my larger point, is that we need to move away from our current notions that people like Elon Musk need to rein in some marginal improvement that I personally feel is more of a temporary upheaval being capitalized on Musk than any marker of some kind of significant cultural shift. The real cultural shift we need is to move away from placing the burden of power on the heads of just a few shifty leaders who we recycle every now and again, and instead replace that with a true, effectual, pragmatic discourse that is enabled by the collective. I think that in the long term, if we can do this with something as simplistic as social media, we can also move on to not have to even segregate those in positions of government authority and those who are just ordinary citizens. I don't want to get too deep into this now, as this video has already been long enough, but I'll just leave this text here for you to skim over. Key takeaway here is that people are not actually inept when it comes to having productive discussions. It's that we're actually limiting ourselves by having the stakes of our cultural discourse limited to ways which are hollow and inconsequential and just localized to these little pockets of the internet, when we could instead be building a model that focuses less on, or rather prioritizes less, political opinions as an identity, and more focus on political opinions as a logical puzzle that we put together without getting sucked into notions of rhetorical posturing and the need to prop oneself up as very smart guy who ratios people on Twitter because I am cool and alpha, blah blah blah, that kind of mindset. Return the power to manifest reality to those who are affected by the decisions we make, and the rest follows. And once it's built, we can actually have these discussions in a way that's effective, and I promise you, it's going to be much easier than you think once you actually get some kind of momentum going here. So I'm going to hand the mic off to Jack for now. He's going to explain the basis for the Elon drop project he has built, and I assure you, even though this is a project of technical complexity, your personal level of involvement doesn't have to be so complicated. I 100% believe that Jackson is a great, talented mind, and he's devoted firmly to the ideals of, well, everything I've talked about in this video so far. Really, I've talked to this guy, he's legit, he's not messing around, and Operation Freebird, it may be hit or miss in the end, most likely miss, but that is up to the internet gods. The basic premise is to unify Twitter as the first independent digital nation. All people who want to partake can claim their own Elon drop token on a parallel app that is set up after just sharing a tweet. Jack wants to create one of the largest crypto airdrops ever created under the idea a meme with a dream. I know it sounds crazy and perhaps difficult, but the fact of the matter is we've already seen it happen on a smaller scale when LooksRare shot up to a $7.1 billion market cap that rewarded people with Looks tokens based upon their own participation. There's going to be a channel in my Discord that is devoted wholly to moving forward with this project that will be moderated by Jack himself. Anyway, here he is, right.
As Hack Guy briefly went over, this is more than armchair philosophy. This is now armchair assault that we want your help in spreading. And we don't come empty-handed, but with a plan and with years of human labor on software built for conducting a revolution. This month, Americans and many others celebrated independence. And while we continue as a world to derail towards a future of pure dependence. My name's Jack, and I am acting in the will of God to lead a war on centralized corruption. Are we so oppressed that even when an elite group literally tells us that their plans for us to own nothing, that we accept that fate? For those that haven't heard, and I know it sounds like a conspiracy, but it's quite transparently online as the plan. The post by World Economic Forum titled, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing. I have no privacy, and life has never been better." So the question is, who is going to own it? Well, it's the elites who are planning this, of course. And then, are we just dust in the wind, floating at the whim of the ideas of some elite group of tinkerers who decide what happiness is for us? Are we really going to sit on the sidelines, consuming the constant flow of information? Or can we stand up for the right of all of humanity to be represented? It's pretty surreal to me that this is blatantly being told to us. I mean, it literally embodies the exact opposite of what the entire American Revolution was a fight against. It tells a story of complete taxation of everything that we own and of a complete lack of representation. That is the future we're being sold. But is that any surprise? The ones who have all the time in the world to imagine the future and the power to control it, seeking to live in a future in which they hold on to the greater power over us that they already have. So in the great words of the late Ronald Reagan, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that we are intended for us by the founding fathers. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan away our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. What this video is, right now, is a rally cry as we kickstart a revolution with the capability to capture ownership of our hot on the press digital nation, Twitter. By now, everyone's probably heard about blockchain and crypto being revolutionary. But instead of a revolution, we have a doggy coin that reached an $88 billion market cap with no vision of disruption and a few holders owning half the supply. The thing with crypto is that it's been all hype. and little changed in the promised future of an internet owned by the users. But that's not to say the capability is not there, just that it's taken a bit to get the infrastructure ready. Just like in the early days of the internet, where most companies exploded, but from the bubble and the rubble came real lasting value. And this is where Operation Freebird comes in. Instead of creating simply a meme token with no end to it, Decentrelon, the project conducting Operation Freebird, has built the technology with real merit for conducting Elon's vision for a user-owned Twitter. Rather than just manipulating the stock, the idea is using not just a meme token, but having a meme with a dream to attain a great goal, and real utility to the token, which acts as voting rights in controlling the entire organization itself. And rather than fighting in the streets with muskets and transporting information via horse and mouth like the Americans did when claiming representation for their taxes from a lying establishment, we all just need to tap a few buttons on our phone, where you claim your share of Freebird, which acts as the governing board of the entire org itself. And this org seeks to buy Twitter or build a better one. 25% of all the tokens in existence are locked in a treasury for use in accordance with the vote of the holders of Freebird. When this allocation is priced high enough to put in our bid to buy Twitter, we hope that everyone would vote to do exactly that. And if not, we can use that for our righteous ends and to make our own Freebird app continue to flourish, to gather more market share than Twitter itself. This, in its success, would mark a new Independence Day for our digital nation. And this would usher in the era Web3 represents, a future in which we own the platforms we use, where our lives are made better and not extracted from, where we can make sure the algorithm supports our mental health rather than making it worse. And for this digital revolution, what we are going to be doing is not fighting in the streets with muskets, but simply going to our fellow friends and to tell them to also claim or die. So what we are doing there is creating this governing board. And right now, this whole org exists as a web app. You can go on app.decentrelon.com, link your Twitter account, claim your token. You get rewarded for putting that in. And once the actual app comes out, which is awaiting approval in the iOS store, there is also the spot where you will vote. It is a crypto wallet in and of itself with some cool, unique features. And along the revolution path, we just continue to send updates to the app. If you watching this are a software developer, we want to work with you. We want to work with all of the great minds that see why this is important and see what great future we can create, that see that this meme with a dream can do it. So as some back-end mechanics, selling the token that you claim is locked until a vote on the last day of August. We do this to seek to give the revolution the best chance to succeed, where it only has one way to go until then, which is gaining momentum. And in an effort to reward early believers of the project, those of you who are watching this video now, you are early birds. And don't get more worm, but what you will get is more Freebird token. The earlier you are, the higher the reward multiple for your claim amount. The token is being given in return, of course, for the tweet being made. And this mimetic flywheel of a tweet to claim function is what we seek to take over the timeline, to become the current thing on Twitter, and to spawn a new revolution of people believing in collectivity. And in the spirit of these memes with dreams, we are creating a bigger, back-end agency to represent our vision for the future, the decentralized intelligence agency. If the CIA is the first line of defense for the United States, the DIA is the last line of defense for the people. My name's Jack J, and I will be in the Discord. I will be continuing to work on this and the DIA and notable projects that create a better future for humanity in which we own the future until the singularity comes. And tomorrow, I plan to book a flight to Philippines to send it out there to build the meme team 6, which will act as the mitochondria of our mimetic movement. I'd love everyone to dive into the white paper on docs.decentrelon.com. Go to the website. All the links are there. There's been a lot more thought put into this. There's a lot behind it. There's a lot of people smarter than me working on the project. And it's very, very exciting to be able to have a longer form platform with to speak on, to talk about these things which are really relevant and meaningful outside of the oversupply of information that which we are not a piece of the action. And everyone, and I mean literally everyone watching this video, we want you in the Discord. We want your help. Every single person can help a lot. We want to meme together. We want to dream together and take action towards a better future. This is the DIA, and we are seeking the agents of chaos, the rebels with a cause.